ever walked into a paint store and like felt overwhelmed by just how many colors there are?
Right.
We're gonna dive deep into the world of the people who actually make those colors happen, the paint mixers.
It's a way more interesting mix of like art and science than people realize.
Totally. So we're using RoleCatcher for this deep dive. It's, a career platform.
Yeah.
They've got this whole guide on what it takes to make it as a paint mixer, and it gets pretty technical.
Yeah, it's not just about, having a good eye for color.
Right. So RoleCatcher calls this a, quote, critical job in manufacturing.
Which is not what you'd think, hearing paint mixer, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
So, like, what makes it so critical? What are we actually talking about here?
Okay, so think about it. Everything we look at, cars, houses, it all depends on getting that paint color perfect,
Yeah.
right? Even a small mistake when they're mixing that paint, that means huge costs later on for the company to fix it.
Wow. So it's like high stakes color matching.
Exactly. It's not just about how it looks.
Right.
It's about protecting a company's like whole brand and their budget.
Okay. So way more pressure than I realized. But where is all this happening? What's the like typical work environment for a paint mixer?
So RoleCatcher describes these kind of bustling manufacturing plants.
Yeah.
Going to be some noise. Definitely got to wear safety gear because chemicals.
Makes sense.
What's interesting is they mentioned some plants run 24/7. So, if you're someone who's like not a morning person, could be a good fit.
A 247 paint factory. That's a mental image.
Right. Intense. Speaking of intense, RoleCatcher gets into like the pros and cons of the job itself. Anything you found interesting in there. They highlight how it's a good job for people who are like hands-on, visual. You're seeing what you make right away.
Instant gratification,
Yeah.
kind of.
And you can specialize. Maybe you become the metallic finish person
Yeah.
or the eco-friendly paint expert.
Oh, that's cool. You could get known for, like, your niche. But what about the downsides? What does RoleCatcher warn about?
They mention the physical part of it. You're on your feet a lot, lifting, mixing big amounts.
Right.
It can get repetitive too.
Mm-hmm.
Same formulas day after day, maybe. And obviously chemicals mean you got to be careful, always.
So not all, like, rainbows and glitter, then.
Definitely not.
They have this whole section on core abilities for paint mixers. What's the deal with that?
So it's more than just like knowing your colors.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to run the machines, make sure they're consistent. But they really emphasize quality control. Like you're testing batches, figuring out why something's the wrong color. And get this, they say you need to know chemistry.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they say it's like 61% important.
61. I did not expect that. So it's not just, like, artistic. You got to be kind of scientific, too.
100%. Understanding how like different pigments mix together, how temperature affects drying, even what the paint's made of chemically, it's a lot.
Okay, my mind is kind of blown, and we're just getting started. So say you do get a job as a paint mixer, what's next? Like, what's the career path look like?
Okay, so RoleCatcher, they lay out how it usually goes. You start entry level, basically assisting the more experienced mixers.
So you're like the paint apprentice.
Exactly. Learning the ropes, perfecting those formulas before they let you near the big fancy machines.
So you're like shadowing, learning the secret formulas from the master mixer. Then what? What comes after apprentice level?
Then you get to play with the big kid toys.
Yeah.
They actually let you like operate the machines yourself.
Okay.
RoleCatcher talks about going from helping out to like being in charge of your own production. You got to match the colors right, do all those quality checks,
Yeah.
even fix things if the machine's acting up.
So that problem-solving thing we were talking about before, that's key here.
Huge. Imagine like you're mixing a batch of red and it comes out all muddy looking.
Oh.
Right. You got to figure out, is it the pigment? Is the machine messed up? Heck, maybe it's the weather that day even.
Wild. So you've conquered the machines. What's the next step up?
This is where it gets really interesting. RoleCatcher says you can get into like actually developing the formulas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So maybe you're working with a client on a totally custom color or tweaking an old formula to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even experimenting with new stuff, new pigments, all that.
So you go from following recipes to like being the head chef, creating the recipes.
And that's what's kind of cool about this. You need that technical side, but also that creative spark. Like one day you're reading a super technical spec sheet. The next you're playing with shades of blue.
Love that. Okay, so we've climbed the paint mixing ladder. We're at the top now. What's a senior level person doing?
Big picture stuff, mostly. You're managing a whole team of mixers, setting goals, making sure everyone's following safety rules, all that.
Right.
And you got to stay ahead of the trends. Checking out new technology, maybe even teaching the new paint mixers what you've learned.
From apprentice to mentor, full
Yeah,
circle.
I like it.
So RoleCatcher is big on getting that real world experience. What do they say about like actually landing that first job, getting your foot in the door?
Internships, apprenticeships, that's what they recommend. It's the only way to like see how those formulas work in the real world on those big production lines.
Makes sense. Plus you meet people, right?
Exactly. Networking is huge, whether it's your first job or you've been doing this for years.
So true. Any other tips from RoleCatcher on how to like stand out from the crowd when you're applying for these jobs?
They had this one that I thought was super smart. Build a portfolio.
A portfolio, like for like artwork.
Kinda. But instead of paintings, it's like samples of paint you've mixed yourself.
Wait, seriously, you mean like actual paint chips?
Yep. It's way more powerful than just, saying you're good at it. Imagine
Awesome.
showing someone a color they use all the time, and then bam, your perfect match right next to it.
That's next level. It's like, I'm not
Uh,
just telling you, I'm showing you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows you're serious, you pay attention to detail, you're passionate. Employers eat that stuff up.
For sure. So you've got the skills, the passion. How do you actually find those industry connections, though? RoleCatcher keeps mentioning that.
They're all about those professional groups.
Like paint clubs.
Kind of,
Hmm.
but with, actual career benefits.
Mm.
You've got people with tons of experience sharing what they know. You get updates on all the new paint stuff coming out.
Yeah.
It's like a cheat code for knowing what's up in the industry.
Okay, that makes sense. What about those industry events? They talked about those too, right?
Trade shows, conferences, that kind of thing. Those are gold mines for meeting people. They're
Exactly.
surrounded by everyone.
Yeah.
Paint companies, suppliers, other mixers.
Overwhelming, maybe.
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
But you get to see the cool new tech in person. Maybe even chat with someone who's like impressed by how much you know.
And walk away with like 100 business cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And never underestimate those little side conversations. You could pick up a trick for dealing with a tricky pigment or even hear about a job that no one's posted online yet.
It's all about who you know, right?
Often, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the career path, the hands-on stuff, all that. What does RoleCatcher say about the actual skills you need to like thrive as a paint mixer?
They have a whole section on that. And it's interesting, this mix of like technical stuff, being able to analyze things, and then this surprising artistic side.
Okay, so what does that look like day to day?
Well, first of all, you got to know how to actually mix paint. And there are different kinds, water-based, oil-based. Each one has its own little quirks. Then there's understanding the pigments, the binders, how it all works together, and what to do when a color just isn't right.
Sounds like you need a good eye for detail.
100%.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher, they're big on precision, especially those formulas. Even being a tiny bit off can mess up the whole batch, waste a bunch of time and money.
No pressure.
Right. But seriously, paying attention to detail is huge. And the analytical part, that comes in with the troubleshooting we were talking about.
So like if the paint's too thin or the color fades too fast?
Exactly. A good paint mixer can look at that, figure out what went wrong. Thinner, maybe the machine needs adjusting and fix it fast.
It's like you're a paint detective, you know? A case of the faded fuchsia, gotta crack this one.
Right. You got to think that way in this job, for sure. But then there's the other part, and this might sound weird. It's kind of artistic, too.
Okay, now I'm really curious. We've done the science part, now we're getting artsy. What's that mean for a paint mixer?
So a really good paint mixer, they don't just follow the instructions. They, like, understand how to make those colors really pop,
Okay, yeah.
They get how different shades work together, how shiny or flat the paint is, changes things, even how a color looks under different lights.
It's like they've developed that instinct, not just matching the color, but making it perfect for what you need.
Exactly. And that kind of thing, it comes from experience, from really getting into the whole world of color.
RoleCatcher mentions that it's important to stay updated on like the latest trends in paint. I feel like there's always something new. What should people be keeping an eye on?
Oh, sustainability is huge right now.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants eco-friendly paints, the low VOCs, natural pigments, that whole thing.
Right.
So if you're a paint mixer, knowing those formulas, understanding how those are different to work with, that's going to be big.
It's like being part of this whole color revolution, making the world prettier, but in a way that's better for the planet too, one shade at a time.
I like that. And it's not even just about the ingredients, Think about how everyone wants their own custom colors these days. People want to be unique. So there's even more pressure on paint mixers to be more creative, more precise than ever.
Right, right. Okay, last question, and it's the big one probably. We talked a lot about the human side of this job, the problem solving, the eye for color, all that. But Technology changes everything, right? Should people be worried robots are going to come for their paint mixing jobs?
It's a fair question,
Yeah.
but honestly, technology, automation, it's all just tools, you know.
Tools, yeah.
They can do things faster, more accurately sometimes, but they don't have that human touch we've been talking about.
So it's not like humans versus robots, but more like figuring out how to use them together.
100%. Like, imagine a machine that could look at a color and instantly tell you the formula. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But then, what if that color needs to go on a textured wall?
Mm-hmm.
Or it needs to look right under a specific type of light? That's where human comes in.
Yeah.
They fine-tune it. They make those tiny changes the machine can't get.
So it really is both the tech and the human eye working together.
Totally.
Well, there you have it. We went deep into the world of paint mixing, and I gotta say, it's way more complex and interesting than I thought. It's a job that takes a lot of different skills, that attention to detail, and honestly, you gotta love color.
Absolutely.
So next time you see a perfectly painted wall, think about all the work, all the skill that went into making that color just right.
Maybe take a closer look at that color.
Yeah. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the world is your canvas.